Hello, welcome to another episode of Yarns for the Soul. I'm your host, Nicole. I'm bringing you episode 4 today, which is very exciting. I have my lovely friend Lynn yarning about all things invisible conditions. And it's something that I'm still learning so much about from her, but she talks about her experiences with both chronic pain and ADD, and the world of invisible illnesses and conditions is something that I am very interested in, and bringing awareness to that space, which obviously flows over into mental health and all those things that we just don't talk about. And so by looking at someone from the outside, you really have no idea what their real story is. So I'm so grateful for Lynn for sharing her story with us today, and I hope you can get some magical insights from her and know that if any of it resonates, you're obviously not alone in that, and there's always people around you for support, and other people are out there who are going through something similar and can relate. So I hope you enjoy today's episode. If you do, if you can find me on Instagram at Yarns for the Soul. I'm on Spotify and all other good podcasting platforms. I would love if you can leave me a review and rate me, and I hope to see you again soon. Today I have the lovely Lynn yarning with me. Welcome.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much for joining me. So many yarns that we could talk about. This could go in any direction.
Danger warning right here for everyone.
A little bit. So we actually met almost, what month is it? Maybe like a year ago. Almost a year ago in Wellington.
Yeah.
Yes. So we were part of the same personal development program, 8 weeks, and we both happened to be living in Wellington, which is amazing. And then both ended up doing the same follow-up 12-week course. So we kind of know each other's like deepest, darkest secrets at this point.
We're like the unpaid therapists to each other with our Sunday coffees in Wellington and now online.
I know. It's kind of crazy because it's like we know so much about each other, but then I'm like, I still don't really know what you do for a job, or like some of the basics.
That's very true. Like what my favorite color is.
Oh yeah, I've never asked you. Do you want to share?
I don't really have one, but I guess the favorite color of the month is probably blue.
Yeah, nice and calming.
Yeah. Although I think I used to do that thing, so I'm gonna segue. How like I used to buy all the important things I had in the color pink because I didn't like it.
Why?
Because then you notice when it's not around, and so I don't lose them as much.
Oh. I was like, if it's so important, why do you want it in a colour that you don't like?
It's like, where's that annoying color?
I enjoy that logic though. That's great. So you want to tell us a bit about your background, a bit about you? I know parts of like your life story.
Okay, I'll try to do the TLDR version.
Yeah.
And then feel free to just poke holes or go through wherever you want me to go more in depth with. So my name is Lynn. I grew up in Malaysia. I moved over in 2013 or 14-ish, 2013 when I was 17, 2018. And I've been here ever since. And I ran away to Canada for a year. And then
ran away.
Couldn't adult anymore, decided I needed a break. So I studied in Kingston for a bit at Queen's Uni and did a bit of research there, came back and worked in Wellington. But I think what you're really interested in is my journey with invisible conditions. So with my mental health, with my chronic pain. I was misdiagnosed for 7 years, and then I got re-diagnosed properly in Wellington about 3 years ago. This is right
When was
around
your
COVID.
first diagnosis? Like the misdiagnosis?
So when so it's kind of like a freak situation. It's always like everyone's always like, "How did you get this?" And I'm like, "It's very anticlimactic." Um, I was writing my mock exams for like, I think it's like NCA level 3 or something to get into uni. So I was writing
Yeah.
the mock exams before the actual exams, and midway through writing it, I lost feeling in my hands, in my writing
Far out.
hand. Yeah, like I was just writing, I was like, "Oh, I can't feel my hand anymore," and then I lost strength quite quickly after, and then I couldn't write. So it just lost mobility completely. So like,
Wow.
you know how when you write A's, you kind of need that flexibility to curve the letter.
Mm.
Mine just looked like zigzags up and down.
Oh my God. So what did you do like in the middle of the exam when you just couldn't write? Like what happened at the time?
I put my hand up and told the invigilator, and they were like, this is weird. Do we call 911? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I left
Mm.
midway through the exam because they're like, this isn't the actual exam, so you're
Crazy.
good.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
yeah, and they brought me home. Mum put my hand in hot water and cold water, and she was like, "Can you feel the
Ah,
temperature difference?" And I couldn't. I could feel the perception of water around my skin.
that's so strange.
Yeah, it was
Was it
so
just
weird.
one hand
It was
at
just
that
the one
time?
hand. Yeah,
What?
it was just this weird like snap twist. No one knows what happened, right? And
Mm.
this is such a stereotypically Asian thing. We went to eat like udon noodles, and I couldn't quite hold my
Oh
chopstick.
no.
It
Why
took-
did they think that was a good idea to take you
I think we
to have
just didn't
noodle?
like. Mom was like, "How are you feeling?" And like that was one of my favorite meals, and so we went to
Mm.
the Japanese place, and it was just weird. Like I couldn't. I'd try to get it up, and it would just fall. Like it was just weird.
Crazy.
But yeah, but then ever since that, and I remember since that incident and the progression of this chronic pain that I have, um, I never really ordered. I made it quite a conscious decision to never order steak because I could never eat the
Wow.
steak. Like I would cut through it, like that action of like repetitive action of cutting through steak, and
Yes.
it actually requires quite a bit of strength and
Mm.
finesse. Weirdly enough, not something that you think about. um, but
No, it's
yeah,
crazy that you say that because I'm like, I've never thought about it in that way, like the
right.
chopsticks or the steak. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, like steak's actually like, it's quite a big motion. You need that grip. Yeah, like I would order steak and usually about 30 minutes in, I'd be in just so much pain. My whole injury, my whole areas would get inflamed. I'd lose strength, I'd lose mobility.
Mm.
And yeah, and then I just couldn't eat it anymore.
Far out. So was it always just like your hand or did it sort of spread or come and go? Like how did it evolve?
So it started out with my hand, and then we had that incident. We went to see a physio, thought it was getting better, but really it was more like I wasn't using my hand as much because it was like school break
Mm.
and then uni break. Um, and it just kept going and coming throughout uni. And then by the time I got to my second year of uni, there was another incident, and I couldn't feel up to my elbow anymore. So
Wow.
we joked that I used to have a time limit of 20 to 30 minutes of writing each
Oh,
time.
crazy. And
Yeah,
then would it just go numb?
I would just swell. I would swell so
Oh,
badly. I would put my hands next to each other, and like the size of this area, like I'm showing you my thumb, between my thumb to pointy finger.
yeah.
Yeah. So when you like put them together, like, and you just look it on the side, like that size would look
Mm.
double the size of my left hand. And
Far out.
there's something a doctor told me later, like my temperature runs 1 to 2 degrees colder on my right hand
Oh,
than my left. Yeah.
crazy. Was there anything that you found to like relieve? Was it painful? Like, what did you actually
Um,
do?
a lot of stretching. So like kind
Yeah.
of like there are a few quick tips and tricks for stretches to try and like stretch out really the nerve of
Oh,
the whole
okay.
area, the nervous system. And I was in special disabilities most of my uni life, so I always kept
So
it quite quiet.
what does
Uh,
that kind of look like? What does that mean?
it's different for everyone. So this is actually something a lot of
Mm.
people don't know is that
Yeah, I
university,
had no idea.
yeah, most universities actually have quite a good or an existing disability center or department that will assist people through their their uni life. So when I first started, because it would get triggered so easily, like 20 minutes into class, I had a note
Mm.
taker. So this person would
Ah,
like, because you take notes all the time. So this is a anyone who's listening, right? If you want a quick cash, go become a note taker if you're still at uni.
yes.
Yeah. So we have people in class who would take notes, and because there'd be a few people, especially in the bigger first year classes, and they just send their notes out to either through the university, they send it to the university center, the disability center, and they send it out to all the people who are in those classes that needed it, or
Ah,
they
so
just
there'd
send
be
it straight to
like,
us.
so one note taker for the whole class, and then whoever's in
Yeah.
that lecture that needs the notes, kind of thing.
Yeah, because essentially you should be taking notes anyway for your classes, right? Yeah.
Or should be actually going yourself.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, so I would go to class and then I could just listen and I'd know that someone else was taking
Mm,
notes. And I could just write off their notes, which would alleviate a lot of the writing need for me. Typing also actually aggravated it, but it would be about an hour.
right.
Yeah, so the idea of the note taker was to kind of give me enough time to recover so I would be able
Mm.
to get back into it.
Did you like that's I find that really interesting because I think it wasn't until sort of a year or two into uni that I kind of discovered what my actual learning style was versus
Yeah.
like something visual or taking notes or actually just listening. Did you find it helped you that you could just actually sit there and listen rather than trying to take notes? Or did
It,
that actually work backwards?
it was really hard because I was always someone who, all through high school, and like I would take my own notes and I had
Yes.
my own like note taking style and I would condense my notes and like that's how I absorbed. And so like losing
Mm,
that ability to translate and paraphrase on
yeah.
my own, like I just felt like nothing was sinking in. And then there's just this, it's just in the back of your mind all the time, like how much time do I actually have? Is my body
Of
have
course.
to study? Like exams were a really stressful time for me. I remember doctors would give me long, slow releasing painkillers so I could actually write my exams. So at
Far
my
out.
worst, I was getting like 800 milligrams
Is that
of
a lot?
ibuprofen. So you get like 200 in one pill. So it's
Far out.
prescribed, yeah. And
Yeah.
I wasn't taking it all the time. It was just more like I take it in the morning or and before exams so that it was slow
Yeah.
releasing into my body. It was just to stop the inflammation. Um,
Wow. Did
I
that
had
mean you could make it through the whole exam? Like a
yeah,
3 hour kind of, yeah.
yeah, and I had special disability like accommodations, right? So basically, the people with accommodations get put in a different room to everyone else. And so most of
Ah,
my exam halls were about like 10 people in a small room and all like spaced out because we all got our own things. Some people have diabetes, so they got to like take
wow.
inject themselves like
Yeah.
check their insulin levels throughout the exam. Some people might have some condition like dyslexia or whatever,
Mm,
and so different people have different things. So like for me, because the thing I was really thankful for Auckland Uni about was my condition never really, it was never really certain. We were always trying to
mm.
figure out what it was.
Yeah. So
So it
did you
was,
have a diagnosis by that point?
yeah, so it was
Yeah.
initially carpal tunnel for my
Ah,
wrist,
okay.
and that's like we did
Yeah.
physio for that. And then in second year, it went up to my elbow, which is not very carpal tunnel. And
Right.
so when we changed it to RSI, repetitive strain injury.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, and I changed my condition changed from um, the ability to take up to extra 10 minutes for every exam to just giving me 20 minutes for every hour. So it's every 10 minutes for every hour to 20 minutes for every hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you still had to do the whole exam yourself,
I start to
like
write it. Yeah.
handwritten. Yeah. How did you
Yeah.
feel after like 3 hours of writing?
Because I had the 20 minutes of rest, right? So it was this really
Mm,
weird thing, right? You get really close to invigilators. I put my hand up and I say, "Hey, I need to take a break." And so I'll go to the.
yeah.
Most of my breaks were me going to the washroom and just putting my hand in the ice cold water to get the inflammation
Wow.
down,
Yeah.
um, and then come back and write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. So after all of that, you said you went to like another specialist or something later on. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was getting really frustrating for the doctor and me because like we were doing everything we could, physio, exercises, stress management, and all of that, but
Mm,
it was fine most days. But then as soon as you got to test the system, exams come in, the whole thing would just get really bad again.
yeah.
Um, And so it was just a situation of like, how can I deal with this? Because stress is always going to be a part of your life, you know? Um,
So it
and
was inflamed by like emotional
so
stress, kind of.
so like one of the definitions, I guess, for repetitive strain injury is the repetitive use.
Yeah.
So things like writing, weirdly carrying a box, it swells it, but I'm all
Ah,
right. And I think it's the fixed movement, so it's not repetitive.
yeah.
Writing is repetitive, cutting through
Okay.
steak and stuff. So
Yeah.
anything that requires constant repetitive movement would instantly trigger it. So it would inflame. And if I feel pain, that's good because I can still feel my hand.
Ah,
It's when I don't
that's
feel
so bizarre that
anything.
you say that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a big like thing that a lot of people don't realize is like feeling pain or sore is good.
Yeah, as a positive for
Is a
you.
positive, yeah. Because whenever I'm like, that's a bad pain, and everyone's like, oh, that's so sad. I'm like, actually, it's one of my better days.
Like today I'm in pain and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I can feel it. Um, but I'm not saying that everyone's the same, right? It's just for me, the
Mm.
alternative is that my whole body's locked up and I don't feel any. Like
Mm.
when I don't feel pain, it's a situation of my whole body is so locked up and the pain is above my tolerance level. So my body's actually preventing me from consciously feeling it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I never actually realized that that's kind of how it all worked, that your body was just like, this is too hard. We're going to stop you from feeling.
Yeah, and like so it was this thing where like when I think back to my uni times, it's super bad, right? Because I was pushing myself. I think there
Mm.
was about 2 or 3 months once when I was doing a leadership program, and I was on like the Malaysians in Auckland committee, co-organizing an event. It was like our fundraising thing, like Malaysian night every year. That's for 160 people.
Mm.
On top of doing my studies and not really going to classes, I hated being in class at that point because
Yeah.
it was just this reminder. Like I didn't feel normal
Mm.
and I didn't feel motivated, and I was
Yeah.
also working. So during that time in my life, I was probably sleeping about 3 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day.
What?
I really used that REM cycle. um, I
Yeah.
really, yeah, I think I was very toxic to myself and my body. It was
Mm.
just this very like, you're not really helping me here, so I'm just gonna push you. And I didn't really feel anything,
Mm.
or maybe I didn't want to feel anything.
So it
Yeah.
was like, I guess, like the way that you phrased that sounds like an abusive relationship with your own body, kind of
Almost.
like
When I think about
taking
it
it out
now.
on yourself in a weird way.
Yeah, and I was young. Like, you know like with the nights where you could just do like a long night out and you go to sleep and you wake up next day you're like, I'm good to go. Like I could not do that
Yeah.
now. I'm just such a nana.
Oh
Like
no, definitely not.
yeah. But
So was
yeah,
it
no.
like, because you say the not wanting to go to lectures and stuff
Mhm.
because that's just a
Mhm.
reminder, like, was it hard talking to other people about it at that time, like trying to explain it?
Um it's weird you say that because like right now like when we've met I've been super open about these things eh? But like yeah,
Yes.
and when I was at uni I didn't really want to talk to anyone about it because I didn't know what it was. I knew it wasn't what I was diagnosed with.
Yes.
We were
Yeah.
still trying to figure it out, and I didn't like having those conversations because like I think as a society we're very solution oriented. Like
Mm.
everyone wants to fix things. And like I love my friends and I love my parents. I love my mom. But every conversation I had was what is this? How are you going to fix it? How do they make it better? How can we solve this? And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
very stressful because those are all questions that I ask myself all the time. It's kind
And
of
you didn't
like
have an answer.
and I didn't have an answer. So like when I've been asked a 10th time this month the same question, I'm like, no, I don't know. Okay, like yeah, and I would have study groups and all of that, and like people wouldn't even know I had a condition until we got to the
Mm.
exam, and everyone's like, Lynn, where are you? Like you're supposed to be in this room for the exam because
Oh,
your
like you
name's
didn't
here.
show up or
Like I didn't
something.
show up, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I am in my exam hall. I'm just in a different hall to you guys. So I like
Yeah.
really leave it to the last point until yeah,
Mm.
until someone said, "Oh, so you why are you in a different hall?" And I'm like, "Oh, I take special
And then
examinations."
yeah, and then you have to explain. So when
Yeah.
did you get the like accurate diagnosis?
I had graduated uni and
Yeah.
went down to Wellington, and
Oh, so it was in
so
Wellington.
yeah, so
Yeah.
by the point one of the reasons why I left to Canada was shortly before that, the semester before that. So the my first 2 years like at uni, then my third year injury got really bad. It got up to my elbow, and I had a
Mm.
conversation with my doctor. She referred me to a musculoskeletal specialist for a bit, and we basically said I don't know what the future of work will look like for me because I can't do a normal office job,
No,
which
and
is
typing all day.
yeah,
Like,
like I can't do
that's,
that. I can't do
yeah.
writing all day, and I wanted to do research. I want to do
Mm.
consulting. I don't know if I can do a high pressure job. I don't know what that's gonna do to me, you know. So
Yes.
yeah, and so I took a year off, went to Canada for a year, and it eased off completely. And I think
Wow.
so. It's definitely a psychological component to it, but also it's just the style. So in New Zealand, we're very exam heavy, so it's like 70% is the exam, so the exams are intense. But
Yeah.
in Canada, it was like 10% every week, and that's like your attendance, your assignment. So when you get to the exam, it's not really a 3 hour writing thing. It's pretty
Mm.
light. Like,
Yeah. So there'll still be an exam. It would just be like a shorter one.
yeah, like a 20-30%, and they're not going to make you write 3 essays, you know?
That's
Like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was just because it was spread out,
Mm.
and my grades didn't matter, so there's probably a psychological component to it. Um, yeah,
Like, I guess less pressure on yourself and on your body.
yeah, and a lot more hands-on, a lot more like because assignments are usually typed up, right? And so
Mm.
I was doing a lot of research work as well, and so like I really went because I had a chat with my parents, and I said I don't know if I can continue doing this because every year of study is literally destroying my body,
Mm.
and I can't keep doing this when I don't know what the end goal is.
Yeah. Like, if you're working towards something, that's great, but you don't know if you can actually achieve that something, if it's a
Yeah.
really stressful job or like fast paced, like you said.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I knew what made me happy, right? I like what didn't make me happy, and I knew that I liked my degrees, but I didn't really know where that was going. So yeah,
Mm.
so I went away. Then when I came back, I made it worse. I tried out whitewater kayaking because I was like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, like I am recovered.
Of course, this is the answer.
Of course, this is the answer.
Oh,
I can live normal again.
I didn't
Um,
know that's what you did.
I went whitewater kayaking. I joined the canoe club. Shout out
Oh,
canoe club.
that's great.
um,
How many times did you go? Had you been before? Or you just like, this is gonna be my thing?
I went like canoeing, like Canadian canoeing or something. I went like in kayaking, lake kayaking, and I was like, this
Is
is
it like
great.
really peaceful? You see in the
Very,
pictures of like this canoe on a lake in the mountains,
yeah. I
and you
did.
went from that to whitewater.
I was like, what's the difference? I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Yeah, like I wanted to challenge myself. I went 3 times. The first time we'd done a bit of training before we went on it, right? Because they're quite good at the health and
Yeah.
safety. And halfway through one of the rivers near Tongariro, I felt a snap, which is kind of the same as what I felt when I first had my injury. And
Mm.
instantly, I could not feel all through my right neck to right shoulder, lat muscles, and all the way down. And it was this
Oh,
surreal thing when I
ouch.
say I can't feel it, 'cause it's not like I can't feel it at all, but like I knew it was exactly how my hand felt, and I
Mm.
lost strength. So like being stuck in an eddy,
With strength in one arm.
strength in one arm and not really being able to put down. I was like, guys, I'm gonna roll. I'm just gonna fall and get out.
That is, I'm feeling stressed right now.
Yeah, and I felt really bad because someone else had to like have an extra vacant canoe kayak with them as we went all the way down, and I was just got up and walked.
Oh, right. I was imagining you like floating your way back down the river.
Oh no, that is so dangerous. But it would be so fun. But yeah, no, we there was a stop midway where everyone was like doing that thing where you jump off the ledge or something. This
Mm.
sounds really bad out of context, but like into the river, it's safe. I can't
Yes,
remember if I did it. But yeah, I think after that I was like I can't get back in that. Like I
that
literally have no strength in
situation.
my right arm. Like
So how long did it last for? Like, when you lost like that whole side, how long does that last for?
I think see if that was like my first instance, I would have been really freaking out. But like I've been through this rodeo like 3 times now. It's just like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do my stretches, the cold water is gonna
Right.
help. We're gonna have a lot of drinks and I'll forget about this. Yeah,
So that's a solution.
that is my solution. Went back to uni, and because usually like it usually takes about half a day to a day for it to kind of recede, and
Mm.
the strength will take a bit longer, a few days to come back in. Yeah.
So does that mean you, like when you say the strength takes that long to come back, does that mean you couldn't like lift anything for 3 days? Or,
I couldn't grip, so like yeah,
yeah,
I couldn't grip anything. Like I had no mobility at all.
crazy. So you've got
Uh,
the feeling, like you
yeah,
know your arm is still attached, but you just can't use it.
yeah. Like I can use it, I just can't like
Yeah,
It's like when you shake a frying pan, like you're shaking it, you just can't feel the temperature of the pan.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind
Ah,
of like that. Yeah, or like when you sit on your arm for too long,
yeah, yeah.
and it's really weird. Like it's there, but it's just like tingly, and yeah, that's how it
Yes,
feels. The
that's so
tingliness is the thing that
strange.
comes back.
Yeah.
So first it'll
So
be
how did,
locked. Yeah, it'll be locked and absence of feeling, and then the tingliness comes back, and I'm like, okay, she's feeling it again. And then after that, I can feel my hand. It's tingly a bit, every bit here and there, and then the strength will slowly creep back in. Yeah.
mm, so how did having like the proper diagnosis, how did that change life for you?
I definitely cried when I was in the doctor's office. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So basically all of that, and then like I was seeing an osteopath in Taupo, and he was the only one who really like helped make me feel normal
All
every bit, but
right.
it kept coming back. So I would go see him right before exams or after exams. Um, Yeah, and so when I moved to Wellington, I had to find a new osteopath and a new doctor, and so I went and
Mm.
saw them both, and both of them kind of came to a conclusion of what it was, but wanted to talk to each other. So my osteopath that I saw there, Lawrence. So if anyone's in
Mm.
Wellington, Lawrence Cartwell, great. Um,
Shout out.
Shout out to Lawrence for fixing me.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. I love him. He's so British. Lawrence, like within the first session with him, he said, I think I know what it is, but I want to be sure
Mm.
before I tell you.
Yeah.
I want all your records, and I also want you to go talk to a doctor. I'll send you a letter. And
So how did the doctor help?
so he didn't want me to start rehab until I had my pain meds. He said
Right.
that what I was going to be doing was basically flaring. It's counterintuitive,
Ah.
but like I couldn't do a push up at all anymore.
Mm.
Like I couldn't cut to the steak, for example. So like the idea of it was I was going to have to constantly activate all the areas that I was trying to avoid activating for the last seven
Ah.
years.
How is that supposed to help? Do you know the logic behind that?
So the idea of it is that I don't actually have an injury. My body is physiologically fine. It is perfectly okay. It is a
What?
neurological condition. My
Ah.
brain is reenacting the injuries every time I use my hand.
So it's like a learnt response or something?
Yeah, my brain doesn't think I've recovered. So whenever I
Yeah.
use my hand, it's like danger, danger. What are you doing? Like why are you not letting
Mm.
it heal? And so like then there's this thing where it's like you're not listening to me, so I'm gonna recreate the injury. I'm gonna send pain signals down constantly all the way, and I don't want to listen to it, so it keeps sending it down. But then this whole
Mm.
thing, because for the last 6 years we've treated it like a carpal tunnel, like RSI, like an injury. So I've constantly been
Yes.
accommodating to this, so it's kind of really validated what my brain's thought. So we were having to
Ah, of
unlearn that.
course.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
so
think
instead
like
of
Pavlovian dog, but my brain is the dog.
so oh my gosh, I'm still like my brain is processing that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird. Yeah. So
So
it's
instead of treating it like a physical injury or something, it's kind of, is it rewiring parts of your
it's
brain, like
rewiring my
reteaching?
brain, kind of, but it's not like I can do it and it'll permanently go away. So I'm managing my pain. So
Mm.
it's like I call it a glitch in the matrix. So it's basically like I'm in this constant conversation with my brain, and she's got Alzheimer's. This is not a very PC
Yeah.
conversation. I am sorry, but yeah, like she forgets, and so if I don't activate my body every other day, it starts to lock up again.
Crazy. So the only way through is activating.
It's actually through it, and
Yeah.
like, because it's happened before, there is a chance with every injury that I get that I may not actually recover
Mm,
because my brain won't register.
yeah.
So
So
yeah.
how does that look for you, like on a day-to-day basis now with the intentional activating versus actually resting as well?
Yeah, so it's like it's a really weird one. Um,
Mm.
you really learn to get to know yourself and your body. You have no choice but to. And I always say this to people, right? Like, I'm really thankful for it because when I think about who I was before this injury came about, before I actually started taking this injury seriously, this injury, this chronic pain, um,
Yeah.
I was very much a go-getter. Like, there was no pause button to me. I had no break.
Yeah.
Like, there would be a lot more 3 hours of sleeps. And
I
like,
feel like you're still a go-getter though, like, and that's still what you look like in my mind.
thank you. Yeah, and like, this is just a very physical break. Like, if my body was a car, like my chronic pain
Mm,
is the brake and the emergency stop. So
yeah.
like, um, for me, every day is pretty normal now. Like, I function for the most part normally. Like, there are days like I don't feel great, and so then I'm a lot more realistic about what I can and can't do.
Mm.
And
So do
adding
you still
on,
limit like your typing and your writing as much as possible, or that's something you can manage now?
I can manage it. Like, the pain meds are
Yeah.
great, because I take them at night and they kind of like see through the day.
Ah,
So the idea of it is more like the pain meds in a weird way. Like, before I took them, I couldn't feel my pain. That's why I was like, I don't have chronic pain.
yes.
But I think so. Don't quote me on this because I'm not a doctor. Um,
I won't. It's okay.
ironic 'cause it's gonna go to a podcast.
This
Um,
is recorded though.
um, I feel like the pain meds actually help me feel my pain. Yeah,
Interesting.
so it helps me. Maybe it brings it down, so my body
Mm.
lets me feel it, so it's not in this like too high mode anymore.
Ah.
So when I first started taking it, I was like, I don't know what is this is doing. I don't feel any different. And then there was a few
Mm.
times where I forgot to take my pain meds the night before. And the next day and the day after, that's when I felt it. Like, I
That's when you
really
know.
felt like I got hit by a truck. And I had a
Mm.
big cry because I was like, this is how much pain my body has been dealing with, and I just never
Mm.
really listened. And like, when you asked me earlier about how did it feel when I first got diagnosed the right way, like with this,
Mm.
I sat down with the doctor and I said, she had tissues next to her, and she was like, "You're so young. Like, you're so young. You shouldn't be dealing with this." And like, I want to, because most people who get it tend to be older. There's a
That's what I
few,
was going to ask if you've like known other people with it or what it would look like, what it usually looks like.
there's a few different different ways of
Mm.
getting into it. I'm trying to get into the community more actively now, um, but the stereotype is usually much older people, and so
Mm.
they'll just like amp them up on pain meds because
Yeah.
they've got a lot of other things already. Other
Do
than
you know
that,
if there's something like, is it triggered by something in particular that you just happen to be have gone through yourself at a young age?
yeah, there's two types of chronic pains. So one is like triggered by an accident, so like a car crash
Mm.
or um
Right.
a something, and then they recover, but their body, it's like almost like, people say it's like phantom limb almost, but it's not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's others like me, so I can like totally send you guys a few links if you want. But like, there are people
Mm.
who literally just stepped on a Lego piece or something, or sprained an ankle, and then it's
Wow.
just, like, they're still trying to understand it. Like, honestly, CRPS,
Mm.
chronic regional pain syndrome, is a catch-all term to
Yeah.
describe this. Like, um, yeah, and it's weird. And like, when I had that chat with the doctor, and she was like, "This is what you have. There is no fixing it because there's nothing to fix. Like, physiologically, if I put
Mm.
your body through a scan right now, you're gonna come out perfectly fine."
So they can't like, I guess, quote unquote, fix you in
Yeah,
the neurological sort of sense.
yeah, they can't fix me physically, like, because,
No,
yeah, because
but
like,
is
it's not a
but they can't
wound.
like rewire. your brain permanently?
They can try,
Yeah.
but it's a weird one where it's like it is and it isn't, right? Because the
Mm,
pain is real, the swelling is real.
yes.
And so like it's a it's a thing where like I feel I can honestly say since I started rehab when I moved down to Wellington, so it was about 2.5 years ago, I've had like weeks where I don't feel pain at all. Like I actually
Mm,
feel normal.
yeah.
Um, and that's been great. But I also want to really acknowledge my privilege here because I am relatively well functioning for someone who has this condition. There are lots of people who are
Uh,
not. Um, a
mm,
very sad thing is one of the nicknames for CRPS is actually called the suicide syndrome.
really?
Yeah, there's a I don't know what the stats is on it, but like because it's something your body is putting you through, like
Mm,
the more serious ones, people describe it like their body's on fire. They can't get out of bed,
wow.
like all of that. And
And
so
there's no
like
solution.
there's no solution. Like there's no like I
No.
can dope you up with pain meds, but like what else can we do, right? And so
Mm,
cannabis is actually one of the more effective treatments.
ah,
Um
interesting.
yeah, and so it's quite sad. But yeah, so like Lawrence, I remember when we are talking about it, like in my last catch up with him, he did tell me he was like, "You're actually like there's light at the end of the tunnel for you." And he was like, "I didn't want to tell you this before, but because
Ah,
this isn't actually a thing, okay, very careful when I say this because it is a thing. It is, and
yes.
like mental health, it is a thing, right?" He was
Mm,
like, because it's something that will just keep expanding, like it'll keep stretching. And so if I never really went to see him, I probably would have gotten to a time, some point in the next 5, 10 years, where I would have been bedridden in pain.
wow.
Yeah.
So now that you've like kind of addressed it and you've got those tools in place, does that mean it's unlikely to get worse if you continue
It's
with
about
everything?
yeah, it's about managing it. So the idea for me
Yeah.
is to constantly activate my body and to be close to listen to what it says to stop it from expanding
Mm,
because it's stressful situations on top of stuff that make it get worse. Like
yeah.
being in a kayak in white water, being stuck in an eddy for the first time, probably not ideal. I mean, like some people with
Maybe
this
not.
condition probably be fine. Like they probably would know how to kayak, but for me that was really stressful.
Yes.
I was being shouted instructions that I had no understanding about. I was like, "What the fuck is an eddy?" Like I knew what it was. It wasn't registering. Like
No.
no.
Oh my god. Was there kind of, I guess, from the like misdiagnosis and then the proper diagnosis? I can imagine, but I like obviously don't understand. But
hmm
was there sort of like a grieving sort of process about like your future looks different to how you imagined it now?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the same. Like, and this is
Mm,
where I am probably overgeneralizing, but I think with any late diagnosis, because I was talking to someone about this, because and
mm,
with my other piece of work that I'm doing, like I do
yes.
talk to talking to someone about this with mental health with ADD, because I also recently got
Mm,
diagnosed with ADD, just
yes.
connecting them.
We'll
Yeah,
jump
like
onto that soon.
yeah, yeah, there's quite a bit. Yeah, I think there was that big sense of relief, that big like,
Mm,
oh, like this is what it is. I
yeah, like it all
actually
makes
feel
sense for you
heard.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't just me. I think that's the big thing that hits, right? It's like it wasn't just in my head. It wasn't just me.
Yes.
Like I was
And so the
trying.
label, like in that case, having a quote unquote label
Mm,
was actually helpful because you're like, this is a thing. This is what I
yeah,
have.
and like like Trish alluded to this in the article that I wrote about her recently, where like
Mm,
you're trying so freaking hard to deal with it,
yes.
right? Like every day. I don't really get a choice into whether I want to deal with it or not, right? Like
Yes.
I mean, it's like a headache or something. You gotta deal with it. And so
Yeah.
like when you get a label that tells you, oh, this is something you gotta manage, it's not going away. It's so validating. Like I was actually trying. My efforts weren't not going anywhere. Like it wasn't me not putting enough effort. It wasn't me being wrong this
Mm,
whole time. It wasn't me being a special snowflake. Um, yeah.
yeah. Because I guess that's the thing with probably almost all like quote invisible
Mm,
conditions. is other people could easily look at you and be like, "Oh, you're being a snowflake," because they
Yeah,
can't see
yeah.
it, they don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's this weird thing, right? Like we're so like the misdiagnosis, I didn't feel like it was a misdiagnosis then. Like every time we
Mm,
got a new diagnosis, I felt hope. Like
yeah.
I felt this could be it. Um, yeah, but by the time I got that actual, this is a form of CRPS. Like I think I knew in the back of my head, of my
Yeah,
mind,
it made sense.
it made sense
Yeah.
because, and that's what did the doctor say? You don't go 7 years with the same condition and like think that that's
Yeah.
still the diagnosis. I'm like, that's true. And so I really
Yes.
appreciate them. I really appreciate that they didn't want to just take what I had been diagnosed with and they wanted to reassess it.
And
Yeah.
continue looking further in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it earlier this year that you got the ADD diagnosis, or was that last year?
It was earlier this year.
It was this
And
year.
it's a weird one, right? Because
Mm.
I didn't actually get a clinical diagnosis. Like I had been seeing a therapist and we've been talking about stuff. And I was at dinner with a friend and she brought her family friend along. And she talked about how she had just got diagnosed and all these things that she thought was
Ah.
normal that wasn't. And I was just like taking them off of my list, going, "This isn't normal, okay? This okay, cool, cool, cool." And I remember, and I
Oh.
yeah, it's
So
so
was it kind
weird.
of the trigger for you to go and like talk to someone about it?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It just made me go, "What?" You know. And I think the
What
signs
sort of
were
things?
um always doing like 100 things at once and never really finishing anything. Um,
Yeah.
always really forgetful, forgetting things all the time. Um, yeah, like zoning in and out of conversations, always feeling like my biggest weakness is I can't focus. I think that was
Mm.
like really it was that chip on my shoulder. It was that really the big thing I was insecure about. Like I always told myself like if I could only focus and really
Ah.
apply myself, I would be much further along in life.
Yeah. When did you sort of start like really noticing that you're struggling with focus? Was it always just kind of present for you?
Um, it's something that everyone's always told me. Like it's always been
Ah.
in some like the number of times in a year my mom tells me I need to meditate. Holy hell. Like
Is it
every
really the answer
conversation.
to ADD?
I mean, it's a form of like treatment. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's everyone's always like, you gotta meditate, just relax, slow down. I'm like, if I could, I would. I talk really fast when I am really passionate about something. Um,
That's okay. I feel like I've
yeah,
just gotten used to it. So you're obviously like always talking quite
yeah.
passionately.
And that is actually a sign of ADD.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess so. Is it like, I don't know a lot about it. Is it sort of neurological as well? Like your brain's just kind of going
It's a
overdrive?
neurodivergence, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just the way a lot of people think ADD or ADHD. So ADHD, ADD are used quite
Mm,
interchangeably.
yeah.
Though I think a lot of people nowadays use ADD as this like because ADHD is the one with hyperactivity. There's another one
Mm.
called ADD, which is like it's more disassociative than it is hyperactive. So there's two aspects to it, right?
Ah,
Some people can have both. Um,
yes.
yeah, so the people with ADD tend to be a lot more silent, so you don't really notice because they're not jumping off walls, but
Mm.
in their brain, same thing is happening.
Interesting, because I
Yeah,
didn't really understand the difference. And you always sort of like growing up, you'd associate, like you'd think of
the
particular kids in class that couldn't pay
yeah,
attention. You're like, oh yeah.
the young little boys jumping off the walls, just going, "Miss,
Yes.
miss."
But never actually knew that like ADD was like the other side of that.
Yeah, and then with girls, for example, more
Mm.
likely to be like not diagnosed, right? Because we learn quicker how to socially mask it.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's so true. So
yeah.
it's funny that you say that you're like always told that you couldn't focus. It was like, did you kind of just take that on board as truth?
Um, well, my teacher said I had a monkey face,
Okay.
a face that I gave her when I wasn't paying attention and looked like I was challenging her. So remembering like I grew up in an Asian community, so like we're
Yes.
pretty, like respect. Your elders is really high up there.
Yes.
And like I think when I look back now it's very disassociative. Like when I drive, I've noticed it
Mm.
Like I thought it was me getting into the zone, but when I drive, I disassociate sometimes.
Ah, because I
Like I'm
feel
just
like
like,
I do that too. Or like
mm.
you go from point A to B, and then you stop and get out of the car or turn the car off, and I'm like, I don't really remember getting here.
More so like for me, it's like if I'm in traffic, I can. It's like I
Ah,
see I'm driving and I can feel myself driving,
yes.
but I'm not really driving.
Interesting.
That's how it feels.
Is your brain doing other stuff? Like you're thinking
No, no, no. I'm just watching myself drive. Like
crazy.
it's just I'm taking a back seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like the way I've described it to people, I was having a one-on-one with my manager recently, and we were on like the top level where the coffee machines are. And I feel like
Mm,
everyone can relate with coffee machines. And so like
yes.
most times, like you have a conversation with someone, and the coffee machine goes off. Someone's like making coffee, it goes makes that vrr sound, and there's a few
Yeah.
chatters here and there. When I'm in that situation, everything is at the same volume.
Ah,
So like
okay.
ADD or ADHD, it's not so much that we don't have attention, it's everything is grabbing my attention. I don't have the
Mm,
filter to prioritize.
yeah, you can't
Yeah.
switch off, like put it into the background.
Like how, yeah, like noise canceling headsets, life changer.
So I imagine like going out for like coffee or a meal or something, is that really hard? Or
I
have you kind of
always prefer,
learned,
yeah.
have you got tools to kind of deal with it?
I think you probably noticed I always prefer walking, like a walk
Yeah.
and talk. Yeah. Because,
Yes.
like, walking, yeah. And if we're coffee outside, like, a cafe, if it's echoey, is like, I can guarantee I have not heard half
Mm,
of what you're saying. But like
yeah.
I never realized all this. So this was where like I always thought it was me. Like I wasn't very focused. I wasn't very present in life. I was always going handies on something else or whatever. But it was just like it's just overstimulating. Like I'm just constantly overstimulated.
Mm.
Um yeah.
So how did you feel when you did get the diagnosis earlier in the year? Like what was your response?
I full on cried, eh? I've been crying a lot. Um yeah.
Just let it all out.
Just call it
I'm
out.
here for
Yeah.
that.
I talked to Janine. Janine is a ADHD management coach. She's neurodivergence coach, and she's amazing because she's
Mm,
done social work and career counseling for people who are neurodivergent. And I think she's be like some sort of like therapist teacher,
yeah.
speech therapist as well. So if anyone's looking,
Wow. Another shout out there.
another shout out there. She's really big. Um, talked to her for a bit. I said like I don't want. At that time, I felt really much like an imposter. I was like I'm pretty well functioning because that was the reason why I went to talk to her is because when
Mm,
I actually asked about getting a diagnosis, first of all, Wellington had a 6 to 8 month wait.
far
Auckland
out.
had a 6 to 9 month wait. And if I went through the public system, kids are always going to have priority, and then adults who are struggling.
Mm,
I am pretty well functioning, so I would never make it
yes.
to the top of the list. Um, and if I was going to go private, it would cost me $500 to $800, but I
Just to
didn't.
get a diagnosis.
Yeah, and why would you
Wow.
get a diagnosis? Because you want meds, and I
Mm.
have not illegally tried it and found it helpful. But I didn't like how quiet my brain got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't like there's options out there for medication, but you
Mm.
need the diagnosis first, obviously, to access all that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't want the medication. Like,
Mm,
I didn't think I needed it. Um, I
yeah. Do you
wanted to.
know what effect like the medication has? What does it mean to do?
I've tried it.
Mm,
Um, it just helped quiet my brain. So the way I would describe it is like everything has a sound. Everything has a volume. Every sound has a volume.
mm,
Um, yeah, and with most neurotypical people, you can kind of turn down the volume at will of different things and focus on other things, right? For me,
mm.
everything is on volume 100 all the time.
Wow. And there's
And
like literally no control
no,
over like
yeah,
turning off the coffee machine in the background.
no.
No.
Like you notice like people with ADD tend to do quite like explicit things like move the body. So like I visually can't see it or hear it.
Ah.
Yeah. Like I'll actually like cut it out of my life. I don't need this right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And so, do you feel like you've got some helpful tools after seeing the specialist in Auckland?
Yeah, it's been interesting because when I was talking to Janine, I definitely developed a few more helpful tools, more so from the learning and unlearning. So unlearning things that are
Mm.
actually a result of ADHD and not my own um,
Ah,
insecurities or lack of competence. So
is there
there's
an
that.
example of that you could give us?
Um, trying to think of something now. So I have object permanence is not a thing for me. The idea of time.
Ah,
So 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, they all feel the same to me.
crazy. No matter
Yes,
what you're doing,
no matter
like
what I'm
at home,
doing.
at work, out for a walk.
Yeah.
Ah,
So yeah, so I always really struggled with that. Like someone would say you need 2 hours to do this. I'm like, what do you mean? Like but yeah, and so like with ADD, ADHD, like I hyper focus, right? So I've always known to start uni, my studying is very highly intensive for 2 hours at most.
mm,
And then I chill for like 4 hours.
does your
Yeah.
brain just switch off? Like 2 hours is all you can handle?
No, it's just that's the how long it took me to get through one chapter that was interesting
Oh, okay.
or a test paper. Like it's
Yeah.
very task based.
Ah,
Yeah, and so like I started using like I started using I don't have it with me. I would totally show you. Like, oh yeah, is this a paper? No, it's different. So like it's like a to-do list, but it has time blocking in the to-do
cool.
and just three
Yeah,
priorities. So I have accepted that I'm never gonna be able to keep track of what I need to do in my head. I just don't have that. So I
mm,
write it down on that
yeah,
paper, and because it's laid out like priorities and the time blocking, I just put in like all the things that have already been decided, you know,
yeah.
and then I just follow along. And then by 2 p.m., I've just gone off the rails of my initial plan, and it's fine. I made it till 2 p.m. So,
What
like,
would happen if you had a task to do, and I guess you don't know how long it could take. It could be up to like 3 hours or something, and you sit down and do it. Do you just kind of lose track of space and time until the task is done?
yeah,
Like no matter how long it takes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like what I always thought was what people meant when they sit in the zone. Evidently not. Like for example, coffee has been a big one.
Ah.
And this is not so it's not the same for everyone. Like
Mm.
everyone's slightly different. Um, with me, like I always thought coffee affected me the same. And this is why I love coffee. Oh yeah, another thing, like I remember talking to Barry about this. Coffee, like people with ADD don't get coffee withdrawals. Like we could quit tomorrow. We don't get the
Really?
shakes, yeah, because it doesn't affect us in the same way. We
Ah.
drink it because it's
That's
fun.
crazy. So you don't actually get the high off it or like the boost in
No,
energy when you do drink it.
no. Like if anything, for
Ah,
me, when I drink coffee, it gives me this temporary ability to tune down the volume of other things,
that's
and I
crazy.
can do work. And then like suddenly I'll know it's weaning off because like everything's becoming loud again.
So it's like this weird magic potion that actually helps you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't know if it's the same for other people. But I
Yeah,
do know the whole like because I thought that everyone thought I was crazy for this in uni. They thought I was torturing myself, but it's like I don't feel it though. Because I would drink coffee like all the way into exams, right? And then I just
yeah,
cold turkey the next day. Like I could be going like 2 or 3 coffees a day and then I just stop the next day. And I'm like, I want to
yeah.
keep my sensitivity. Um, little did I know my sensitivity wasn't even
Did it
sensitivity.
exist?
Yeah,
So how did you like thinking back to how you did your exams at uni?
yeah.
Like how did ADHD kind of play into that? Was it quite hard to manage your time?
Yeah, hell yeah. I so what I would do is with
Yeah.
exams, I always like one thing that I was really lucky is I had my exams in a smaller room, so there were less pen
Mm,
clicking stuff. The one time I had my exam
yes.
in the normal room because it was just like filling in blanks, it was all multi-choice, I could
Yeah.
not concentrate. Like there was just so much going on.
Yeah.
And I thought it was because I attuned to like having not a lot of people around.
Mm.
Um, yeah, usually like this is another thing I've noticed because I've talked to a few people about this now. I have like organizational systems on organizational systems, like because I know
You do
it's
it
not in
with.
here. um,
Yeah,
yeah, and so like every time before an exam, I already like blocked it out. I go like, if I had to do 3 essays, I need to be done here by 12:10, and then here by 12:20. So if it's a
yeah,
3 hour exam, I'll make it so it's 2.5 hours, and I'd have 30 minutes of leeway to just like fuck up.
yeah.
But then
Perfect.
this is where the interesting thing comes in of, because my chronic pain was basically my own time limit. It was
Yes.
the way they played with each other. So like I credit a
Yeah.
lot of like how I've actually managed my ADD to having my chronic pain.
That's so fascinating. Because I
Yeah.
guess you've got a sort of not self-imposed, but like your body's putting a time limit on how long you can write for anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So like I know what 20 or 30 minutes feels like because my body starts going into pain. I'm like, "Oh, she needs a break now. I'm gonna go."
Which kind of helps you like keep track of your ADD brain.
Yeah, yeah. And like weirdly like mastered even more because everyone's like, "Oh, your brain moves really fast," but it's probably because you've had to like think a lot because you know you're like writing
Ah,
has a limit.
yes.
But I
Yeah.
feel like my brain probably always moved this fast, and people have normalized it because I think to some degree like chronic pain is easier to understand than
Mm.
ADD because everyone feels pain,
Ah.
but no one looks at attention the same way. No one attunes the same way, you
Mm.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I find it so fascinating when you talk about like this noise
Mm.
sensitivity and all of that stuff. And most people have never thought about it in that way, or can't really conceive. Like you can relate to being in pain, but you can't relate to the idea of like your conversation as being the same level as like the traffic or the coffee or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And like apparently very sensory. Like I have
Mm.
mink blankets
Oh,
on top of my normal duvet. So I usually
yes.
sleep on top of it or under it.
Ah, does that help? Like, is it like a calming sort of thing?
It's just soft and I like it. Like that was just my preference. I hate it. My mom used to call me Princess in the Peas. Like I hated scratchy sheets and like I hated tags, all of that. Like it just
Yeah.
I just
So you're
couldn't
just so attuned to anything that's like uncomfortable.
hyperfixate on it. Yeah. Like crazy.
That's something I didn't know about you, is your love of mink blankets.
Mink blankets, game changer.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it.
It's just
Um, I'd love to briefly touch on the work that you have done with your writing and interviewing other people with invisible illnesses, because I think
mm,
that's really amazing that you're kind of creating a space to give people a voice to talk about it. And it overlaps with obviously like mental illnesses and stuff like that, where there's we're getting better slowly, but still lack of understanding. Or if you haven't been through it yourself, you're just not going to know. Um, so if you want to give us a brief rundown of the work that you've been doing in that space.
cool. I'll try.
Yes.
So, um, I currently interview people with invisible conditions themselves. So anyone who identifies as having an invisible condition or supports someone through it, actually. Um, yeah, that's a new add-on. And so basically we just talk about, I interview them, we have a chat about what their life is like right now, what they do, who they are, the multiple facets that people have, and their
Mm,
invisible condition and how it plays into their life. And then I write an article about it. It's becoming the coming out story for a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, I haven't actually told people about it, so I'll just use your article." I'm like, "Okay."
that's so
um,
powerful, though. Like, I guess that's something you hadn't really thought of or intended.
yeah, yeah. I was like, "Great. I just gotta make sure I write this right then." Yeah, and it's because it's such a touchy thing, right? Obviously, it's like we talked about here, like it's everyone has a different flavor of it and
Mm,
stuff. So I usually write about it, and then we go back and forth on um this article, speak their truth and stuff, and then I release it on medium.com. My hope through
yay.
that is that it just um gives people, it's a really cliche thing, like I'm hoping to build more love and empathy into the communities through this.
Yeah.
Like I think I think 1 in every 4 or 5 people have an invisible condition. Like,
Mm,
so it's just amazing, like how many people you see and talk to every day and not really know what they're going through. And it doesn't even have to be an invisible condition. It could be like someone that they're supporting through life, or their own like
Mm.
financial problems or physical problems, right? Like we just this is the one thing I'm realizing, right? As a society, we feel so entitled.
Mm.
Like we feel like we're owed people's stories. Like why does this person need to take leave? Like what condition are they going through? Like when in fact I don't
Mm.
owe anyone my story at
Yes.
all. Like just because I have chronic pain doesn't mean everyone needs to know about my chronic pain. But it does help
Mm.
normalize it. And yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it's you're kind of increasing not only awareness but hopefully understanding as well for people that read the work that you've been doing. And even like I've known you for a while now, but even chatting now, I'm still learning stuff about it. And
Me too.
there's so many layers and stuff that I wouldn't have thought of. But then that kind of only, well, hopefully helps both of us because then I can understand you
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I volunteer as tribute because like I know that I am super open about these things.
Yeah.
Like I'm so open in talking about them. Like like the one question that I've been getting a lot from people is how do you bring out in the workplace? How do you ask for support?
Mm.
And I brought it up from the second interview
All right.
because like for me it was like I it's not an I want, it's an I need. Flexibility is
Yes.
not nice, it's something I need. I don't get to choose whether I wake up tomorrow and be
Mm.
in pain and decide I can't go into the office, like
Yeah. So you
so
need certain supports or you need your day to look a certain way for you to
yeah.
actually kind of function.
And I find like it's a great filter because you talk to people and
Mm.
most people want to be helpful, but it's a very gray area. So a lot of people get a bit afraid of how to help. So whenever I
Mm.
have those conversations with people, I'm like, this is what I'm going through. This is what it's like. This is what support can look like for me. And I try to provide options for them,
Yeah.
um, so they can choose and tell me like which one they could kind of work towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's quite, to me, it feels quite powerful, like as an employee or like in a job interview, kind of bringing some power back to yourself rather than just working within whatever system they've got or not have at
Mm.
all. Actually being like, no, this is a need. I need this if you want me to work for you, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think
Mm.
like people don't realize how much power they have. And like this is something we knew as well going through the whole
Mm.
program, right? Like
Yeah.
people don't realize just how much power they have, how much their lived experience has really given them,
Yes.
like in terms of variety and strength, right? Like a lot of people are like, but what if they don't hire me because I have these conditions? And I'm like, but what if they do? But also the biggest
Mm.
thing is I feel like I am so much more marketable, not because I'm a living quota, being Asian female and with a living condition, but like there's so much you're gonna have to cut out of this. I'm so sorry, but like
We're not cutting that. That's great.
um, I think it's because of having lived this. Like I have a lot
Yes.
more empathy, and I'm able to have these conversations. Like my one of my workmates has joked that like I am the bullshit cutter sometimes. Where like I get into a conversation and we can all be going around the same page, and I'm like, this is what I'm hearing. This is what we're trying to
Yeah.
solve. Like
Love it.
yeah, and it's from the experience of dealing with your own condition, having to live life, having to problem
Mm.
solve, right? Like
Yeah. That's just so powerful. And like, for me, I kind of imagine it through like a mental health lens. Like, if I was to go back into like working in law or a full time job and showing up and being like, this is what this is a need. It's not a want. This is a need for me to work for you to be able to function full time and not hit burnout in like a month. But it's like
100%.
I've never really heard anyone phrase it that way because I guess especially when you're a bit younger, you're like, oh, I need the job, so I'm not gonna like impose anything that I actually want.
Yeah.
Mm,
Exactly. Yeah, like and it's like with you and your lived experience, I think like you bring so you're whenever we have a conversation in our subgroups or any situations or even when we talk to each other, like you're so grounded and like you're really able to go, how do you really feel? And like, take a rest. Like
thank
take it,
you.
and like and I feel that comes from your lived experience, from like having seen
Yes.
so much stuff and experienced so much having to go through all of that and like I don't know how much you shared in this podcast, how much you're open
Mm,
to sharing, but like, yeah, like you've definitely been in situations where you're like, rest is kind of all you can do, and like, and speak, learn from the best. The guru herself has said
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you don't until you probably take a step back and you realize that you're your own expert. You've got all those lived experiences, so you can kind of speak with some authority on what you've been through, even though you
Mm,
don't give yourself that credit. And now, like reflecting back on my own experiences, I'm like, I am going to take a break. This is what I need. I need the rest. And I was always like, even in my last job, I took a lot of like sick days or kind of mental health days, but I'm like, this is important for me to be able to show up and keep doing the work.
exactly. As
Yeah.
you see that in all the different cultures. Like,
Mm,
in Western culture with Brene Brown, the power of vulnerability, the power of quiet, Susan Cain,
yes.
just being real, and then like in Maori culture, he tangata, right? Like it's about the people. It's all about the people, like that connection.
Mm,
And then Chinese as well, guanxi, which is like the idea of like when you go into a business meeting and stuff, it's all about relations. You don't even talk about the product. You just get to know this guy and what his family has gone through,
yeah.
and like because everything else, low key social construct, you know.
Yes. And it's crazy once you start digging and having these types of conversations that you're like, my preconceived ideas are very Western and very taught, and there's still like a lot of that that I probably still need to tear to the ground.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do I actually believe that? Is that what I think a workplace should look like, or how should it function, or how should you build those sorts of relationships? Um, and then you realize, oh, I've been taught this. This is not my own idea.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So many.
So many things. It's
Yes.
very true. Yeah, like I can always keep jamming and talking about this. I just keep going.
I feel like there's so many different directions that we could go in. But thank you so much for joining me today and yarning about the all the invisible illnesses that you've struggled with and your experiences. And yeah, I'm just such a big fan of the work that you're doing now,
Thanks.
writing and sharing about it as well, and sharing other people's stories, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you. Love your yarns. Can't wait to hear more podcasts.